Peace is the easiest thing to hold on to. Touching your thumbs to your index fingers, both of them, and holding them there. Say to yourself, feel the energy of peace. Touching your thumbs to your index fingers, feel the energy of peace running all through you and resting in your heart. Breathing in deep through your nose, say to yourself, I am peace. Holding it in. Sipping in more peace when you can. Breathing out, releasing all that no longer serves you with compassion and a smile. Say to yourself, I am love. Real Magic, reading number 4. Believing in miracles and real magic. Wayne Dyer is writing here. He says, when I write about the world of real magic and miracles, I am not referring to developing a talent for turning rocks into gold, raising the dead, or commanding the seas to part. When I speak of miracle making, I am discussing whatever you have considered beyond your ability to create for yourself because of limitations you believe you have. In later chapters, I'll describe the major areas of life where real magic is available. For now, I want you to cultivate the foundation for creating real magic in any area that you would like. If you have lived your life believing that certain accomplishments or levels of accomplishment or levels of achievement were impossible for you, then first you must begin by examining your life focus and beliefs before attempting to implement any real magic strategies. Getting your life to purpose and creating an openness to being assisted are crucial to becoming your own miracle worker. Beyond these qualities of purposefulness and openness, there are guidelines for putting yourself in the proper mental framework. These beliefs, or quote, knowings, are necessary to help you go within and literally manifest what you have previously believed impossible. I will be alluding to these, quote, knowings throughout the pages of this book. In my own life, I have had to travel through a sequence of steps, all within my mind, in order to be at the point where I can write that I feel confident in my ability to manifest what I can only call miracles. I call them miracles because only a short time ago, before I experienced this inner awakening, the things that I can now create and manifest seem to be impossibilities. I offer these sequential steps believing that if it's possible for me, it's certainly possible for anyone else. I am reminded of the words of Christ on his own miracle making. Quote, he that believeth in me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do. Or one, you could probably say, one who believeth and can do great works. Somewhere deep within you, you know that you have this kind of power, even though you may not have an inkling of how to use it or how to begin to tap into it. You still know that within each of us is a divine, invisible presence that has something to do with creating a state that can only be described paradoxically as real magic. Christ went on to say, quote, ... but ye shall know him, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you, end quote. That's correct, italicized. In you is that magic, invisible presence that I am writing about here. It's not something outside of you requiring a lifelong search to attain. It dwells within you, in that invisible part of yourself, where the rules that pertain to the physical world simply do not apply. In your soul, your spirit, or higher self, your mind or thoughts, or whatever you choose to call it, lies that entryway to the world of real magic. When you master the inner path of awareness presented in part 1 of this book, you will not greet the application of this awareness with any skepticism, nor will you doubt that I am talking through that divine inner presence directly and unequivocally to you. New heading: 7 beliefs for manifesting real magic. Wayne Dyer says, I have identified 7 beliefs or knowings that can help you tap the power of real magic. They are presented sequentially, and once you find yourself with the internal knowing that comes from adopting these beliefs, you will be on your way to becoming your own miracle worker. 1. This is italicized. It says, there is an invisible and knowable life force within you. There's an invisible and knowable life force within you. Try cultivating an awareness of the invisible life force that suffuses all form in the universe, including your physical body. This is the same universal intelligence that directs a rose to be a rose, a beetle to be a beetle, the planets to align and move through space, and you to be you. It's without boundaries or dimensions, in the same way that your thoughts, feelings, imaginings, dreams, fantasies, and emotions are. This universal life force that is a part of you cannot die. Death implies an ending, and ending implies boundaries. For this first step, just know that this powerful, divine, invisible force is within you. Trust totally that it's there. It's in fact what allows you to perceive and experience your physical body and this physical world in which you find yourself temporarily housed. 2. Italicized. Your thoughts are something that you control, and they originate with you. And you'll see it. Okay, so it says italicized, your thoughts are something that you control, and they originate with you. And you'll see it when you believe it, which looks like it's the title of one of his books. You'll see it because it's italicized and capitalized. And you'll see it when you believe it. And you'll see it when you believe it. I wrote an entire section on the power of thoughts. Here I simply encourage you to realize that thinking is our way of processing and recording our human experience. Thought originates from within a nothingness inside of you and gives you your humanity. All of your past is in this realm of thought, as is your future. Your thoughts create your experience of your health, wealth, and every detail of your world. Ralph Waldo Emerson reminded us that, quote, "The ancestor to every action is a thought," end quote. You live the life you imagine you are living. When you stop imagining or imaging or thinking, you cease actively participating in your physical world. As a step toward the awakened life of real magic, you must consider how your thoughts have contributed to a non-miraculous, limiting approach to life. Then you will know that you can also produce the opposite. If, in fact, miracles are available for anyone, you can be one of those people who experience them. And they begin in that ancestor to all of your actions, your thoughts. 3. There are no limits. There are no limits. All the things that you have become convinced are limits, are products of the way in which you have learned to think. You probably were taught that logic and scientific verification dictate what's possible and what is not. Before the invention of the microscope, most people did not believe in the existence of microscopic life. People who believe only what they can see or prove scientifically are limited by the current level of sophistication of our measuring devices. You know that at some future time we'll be flying from place to place on this earth in moments rather than in hours. And interplanetary travel will be a fact of life. The capability to do so is already here. That is, the universal force that is timeless already exists, only the technology is missing. Do you believe in this possibility now, or must you wait until the technology arrives before you can believe it? Only 20 years ago, this book was published in 1992. So he's talking about 1972 right now when he says only 20 years ago. Only 20 years ago. Only 20 years ago, the idea of a remote control that would allow you to switch television stations was an impossibility. 20 years ago being 1972. Renting a movie was unthinkable in 1972. Microwaving meals in a few moments at home was not at all a part of our consciousness in 1972. Although the capacity to create these miracles were available even at the time of Hannibal, the devices came along at their own pace. Be a person who accepts no limits in your mind. None. And in 1992, when this book was written, who would have thunk that everyone's going to be walking around with computers in their pockets? Even people living on the street are now getting free computers in their pockets. Yeah. 4. Your life has a purpose. Your life has a purpose. Backup beep and a siren at the same time. Back up. Have compassion and gratitude. 4. Your life has a purpose. The entire universe is an intelligent system. The universe that is your physical body is a multitude of systems all functioning with amazing perfection, and it too is an intelligent system. The invisible parts of you, your thoughts and feelings, are also part of the system that is you. That intelligence is invisible and can be described or spelled in any way that you choose. Thousands of terms have been invented to describe it. And the intelligence is not the label. Just as the statue is not the saint and the menu is not the meal. You are that intelligence from which you can never separate yourself, and you have a purpose. I have explained the necessity of getting your life to purpose and about getting yourself on that purposeful path. What I ask of you here is to simply know it. Know you have a purpose, and you will be on your way to creating magical life in any and all areas of your choosing. 5. You, italicize, you overcome weaknesses by leaving them behind. You overcome weaknesses by leaving them behind. You cannot overthink your weaknesses and limitations. You will not get yourself to the place of inner harmony necessary to create real magic by working hard to overcome your old self-defeating behaviors. What you can learn to do is leave that stage of your life behind you and walk through the gate into a new way of being. This process of leaving behind old habits begins in your invisible dimension, that is, your thoughts. You see yourself truly letting go of the obstacles that you've chosen for a lifetime. You picture yourself no longer needing to rely on those self-defeating patterns. Then, the thinking part is complete. Now you move forward to a new you. When you leave behind the belief that you cannot change or that you cannot create the miracle you want for yourself, you will leave behind the physical activity that has supported that belief. Picture it behind you, look back at it, and know that you no longer live that way. I can see myself at a distant time actually behaving in those old ways, and I smile inwardly, knowing that I have left that part of me behind. It started with a thought and then an action based on the new thought. And for me, this is a miracle that I now live every day. I did it not by constantly trying to outthink the problem or by gradually sneaking up on it, but by leaving it behind me. This is in fact the way all miraculous changes are made. When it gets right down to, quote, how do I change? Or, quote, how do I create the miracle that I want my life to be? After all the talking, counseling, support groups, medicines, elixirs, pep talks, and proddings by others, one must ultimately leave behind that which is self-destructive or functioning as an obstacle to growth. Every single person who has ever overcome any difficulty or brought about positive change in their lives, when faced with the bottom line, has had to leave behind the old habit through their own will. Know this to be a truth, and you'll soon see yourself creating real magic in your life. 6, italicize. When you examine what you believe to be impossible you can then change your beliefs. When you examine what you believe to be impossible, you can then change your beliefs. Take an inventory of what it is that you believe cannot happen in your life. Whether it's related to your physical accomplishments, relationships, health, or finances. Vow, at the very minimum, to rid yourself of those beliefs. Stop those beliefs. Stop those limiting beliefs. Rid yourself of those. Stop those limiting beliefs. I'm not asking you to I am not asking that you fool yourself or engage in self-deception. I am asking you to create an openness to the possibility rather than continuing to subscribe to the impossibility. That's all. Just an openness to a new idea. And remember, you do not have to do anything different in your life at this moment. Only change around some mental images. New thoughts will ultimately lead you to new and miraculous behaviors. If anyone has ever overcome a diagnosis of, quote, terminal, then know that such a capacity exists within all of us. The universal force or energy that once created a miracle is still present. The force itself has not disappeared, even if the miracles themselves have. Stuart Wilde writes in italicized and capitalized, miracles, quote, because the universal law is indestructible and therefore infinite, we can presume that whatever power was used by miracle workers in the past must still be available today, end quote. And if it is still available, I am asking you to believe that it's there for you to tap into. This universal law that created miracles has not been repealed and will never be. This entire book is about helping you align yourself in such a way that this universal force or energy is something that you can know intimately and use in your life, even if no one else around you knows what you are doing or believes in what you are talking about when you speak of miracles. Once you know and choose to use this force, your life will take on the flavor of real magic. I guarantee it. At this point, I'm not asking you to begin performing miracles. I am asking you to simply open yourself to a new inner belief system that says maybe, just maybe, this is a possibility for me. Maybe this is a possibility. Whatever you want. What is this? Whatever you want to be. Open yourself to the possibility that whatever you want to be is a possibility for you. This universal law that created miracles has not been repealed and never will be. This entire book is about helping you align yourself in such a way that this universal force or energy is something that you can know intimately and use in your life, even if no one else around you knows what you're doing or believes in what you are talking about. when you speak of miracles. Once you know and choose to use this force, this power, your life will take on the flavor of real magic, I guarantee it. Power versus Force is a great book. At this point, I am not asking you to begin performing miracles. I am asking you to simply open yourself to a new inner belief system that says maybe, just maybe, this is a possibility for me. Everyone who has ever come from dirt poor origins to create abundance for themselves, including myself, Wayne Dyer, has had to use the universal energy within their minds before it could happen in the physical world. If that miracle-making power was available to any impoverished soul, it is available to your impoverished soul if you would choose to decide that this is your truth. Know that if anyone has gone from sickness to health, fat to slim, addiction to choice, poor to rich, clumsy to agile, miserable to happy, or discontent to fulfillment, then that capacity is part of the universal human condition. Even if only one person has ever accomplished it, then it is indeed possible. And even if it has never been before, such as a cure for polio prior to 1954 or an airplane ride in 1745, the fact that one unique individual is capable of conceiving it in his or her mind is all that is required for humankind to be open to the possibility. Replace the belief that something you are capable of imagining in your mind is impossible with the belief that it is possible. Go to work on that thought right now, in this moment, which is the only physical reality you have. This moment is the only physical reality you have. 7, italicized. You can go beyond logic. You can go beyond logic. Although you may not be completely comfortable relying on something other than logic and rational thinking, try to let in the idea that there is another dimension that is very much a part of you, which has nothing to do with logic or scientific validation. You have never seen, touched, smelled, or physically felt a thought or a dream or a feeling, yet you know they exist. There is no rational proof for the existence of intuition, yet you know that it exists within you. Until a few years ago, there was no physical proof for the presence of microscopic life, yet it existed. And so it is with a portion of your humanity that I call your soul. While we haven't come up with a, quote, soul scope to rationally prove its existence, we have, nevertheless, an inkling that such a dimension persists as part of our humanness. There are some who will never believe it unless they see it. Others will see it because they believe it. These are the 7 beliefs you can use as mental steps to setting your internal gyroscope for real magic. There are some who live their entire lives content with the limitations of their 5 senses. Real magic and miracle making are not on their life agenda. For others, like you and me, while we know the physical part of us to be a beautiful miracle in and of itself, we also know there is a spiritual dimension beyond the scope and boundaries of our physical universe. The differences between these two awarenesses, physical only versus spiritual, italicized, and physical. Physical only versus spiritual and physical are many. The next chapter will describe in more detail what these specific differences are and how the benefits of real magic and miracle making become available by shifting your consciousness to include your spiritual side. Chapter 2, Becoming a Spiritual Being. Here's a quote out of the Bhagavad Gita. We are born into the world of nature. Our second birth is into the world of spirit. Bhagavad Gita. Few of us have been trained to tap into the power of our minds. We have been raised on a steady diet of logic, rationality, and a, quote, believe it when you see it mentality. In short, we have been brought up to believe only in those things that we can understand and verify. Miracles cannot be understood by a rational mind. They defy logic. They cannot be, quote, understood in the ways we have been conditioned to think. Therefore, in order to enter the world of real magic, you want to learn how to go way beyond your rational mind and enter the dimension of spirituality. New heading, moving past skepticism. Moving past skepticism. Any minimal spiritual training you have received has likely come through the medium of some religious organization. The wonderful gift of religion is the teaching that we are spiritual in nature and that we all have a soul as part of our humanity. The major drawback of religion is that it teaches that the soul must conform to rules and regulations, and that these restrictions of the soul come directly from the dogma of a particular religion and its representatives. But the soul does not conform to any of the boundaries or laws that have been assigned to it. It is dimensionless, formless, and invisible. Even writing about it is very difficult because sentences must come to an end, while the soul is endless. Because of your formal training, you have very likely adopted a skeptical attitude towards spirituality. In order to participate in the high drama of miracle making and real magic, you must believe in your spiritual self, which has absolutely nothing to do with your religious affiliation. Whatever you choose to call that higher intelligence that suffuses your form, whatever the name of your spiritual teacher, it is inconsequential to your miracle making potential. I am simply encouraging you to develop an authentic knowing about this part of your humanity. Maurice Nicoll wrote in italicized, living time, and capitalized, living time, these words, which I find most appropriate on this matter. Insert. We do not grasp that we are invisible. We do not understand that life, before all definitions of it, is a drama of the visible and invisible. We think that only the visible world has reality and structure, and do not conceive the possibility that the inner world we know as thought, feeling, and imagination may have a real structure and exist in its own space, although not the space that we are in touch with through our sense organs, end quote. To develop the knowing within you of the truth in Nicole's words, you have much to overcome. You will be asked to believe in the unknowable, something that you've been taught not to do. And it's always there, as H.L. Mencken put it so deliciously, quote, penetrating so many secrets, we cease to believe in the unknowable. But there it sits, nevertheless, calmly licking its chops, end quote. Indeed, it is right there, and yet you cannot put your fingers on it for even an instant. Becoming a spiritual being involves forgetting about your five senses, including that finger that you cannot place, and developing a calm sense of trust in that which you know suffuses you, but which you can never prove with logic or our current measuring devices. Once you have the experience of this invisible dimension and you know this higher place, you can go to within your mind and receive guidance and, yes, even the help in creating real magic for yourself. You will have shifted from being an exclusively physical person, a human being having a spiritual experience, to a spiritual being having a human experience. Certainly, you will not deny your physical self in any way. In fact, your shift to becoming a spiritual being will magnify and enhance your physical life in a multitude of ways. The place for creating real magic will be in your spiritual awakening, yet it will be manifested here and now in this physical world where you find yourself every day. You want your enhanced miracle-making ability to appear in the reality that you call your physical life. When this special knowing becomes real for you and is something that you can turn to and trust within yourself, it's like being so wealthy that regardless of what you do, you'll always have money. You will be comforted in knowing that you can never lose your spiritual contact once you have it, and know that it's always a part of you. While I am asking you to accept this invisible world that you know exists, but as Nicole stated, you cannot point to your senses. There are many respected people in our scientific community hard at work attempting to prove scientifically the existence of the soul, though it is not my purpose here to prove or disprove anything in the scientific sense. A few words about these studies will help you to get moving in the direction of becoming first a spiritual being and then a physical being that is a result of your spirituality. In the fascinating book titled Recovering the Soul, Larry Dossey, MD, presents a comprehensive picture of the evidence supporting a non-local theory of the human mind, The theory states that the human mind is not restricted to a body or a brain, but somehow exists in time and space in concert with the physical body. This non-local view of the mind opens up enormous possibilities. As Dr. Dawsey puts it, insert. Suppose for the moment that we could show that the human mind is non-local, that it is ultimately independent of the physical brain and body, and that as a correlate it transcends time and space. This, I believe, would rank in importance far beyond anything ever discovered, past or present, about the human organism. This discovery would strike a chord of hope about our inner nature that has been silenced in an age of science. It would stir a new vision of the human as triumphant over flesh and blood. It would anchor the human spirit once again on the side of God instead of randomness, chance, and decay. It would spur the human will to greatness instead of expediency and self-service. And once again, we might recover something that has been notably absent in our experience of late, the human soul. End quote. This idea that the soul is timeless and non-local is indeed fascinating. It's being investigated by scientists in various specialties, and I am certain we will soon have incontrovertible evidence of this non-local position. Imagine the difference such a piece of evidence would provide for us as human beings. Knowing that the soul survives death of the physical body will help us to rearrange our ways of dealing with each other while we are here on earth. It will drastically affect our medical practices, as Dr. Dawsey points out. Insert. No longer would it be the ultimate goal of the modern healer to forestall death and decay, for these would lose their absolute status if the mind were ultimately transcendent over the physical body. ... And if humanity really believed that non-local mind were real, an entirely new foundation for ethical and moral behavior would enter, which would hold at least the possibility of a radical departure from the insane ways human beings and nation states have chronically behaved toward each other, and further, the entire existential premise of human life might shift toward the moral and the ethical, toward the spiritual and the holy. End quote. It's within this context that I ask you to look carefully at becoming your own spiritual being, for it's within this context that all miracle making and real magic will be experienced. And once you have developed the inner knowing of your spiritual, non-local self, all the external scientific data becomes meaningless. To help you suspending your disbelief, here are a few opinions from contemporary scientific thinkers on this subject. Robert Herman, scientist, executive director of American Scientific Affiliation, and author of the God who would be known, the God who would be known, puts it this way, quote, everywhere you look in science, the harder it becomes to understand the universe without God, end quote. When pressed to define God, theologians and scientists find themselves in rare agreement. They know that in a physical world of cause and effect, somehow the whole thing had to get rolling. They also know that some kind of invisible force holds the whole thing together, including all matter. Rather than viewing God as a deity off in the sky somewhere, they see God as a presence pervading the universe. Hence the biblical notion of, quote, in him we live and move and have our being, end quote. If you want to think of God as a him, like it says in the Bible. For the scientific community, who live and feast on hard evidence, there is much disagreement on this entire business of the soul and God as a presence in all life. Yet scientists know that something exists in all life that defies logic. A heart begins beating within a mother's womb 6 or 7 weeks after conception, and the entire process is one gigantic mystery to even our most sophisticated scientific minds. 40 years ago, the answer to the question, quote, do you believe in God, was most commonly answered with, quote, of course not, I'm a scientist. Today, more and more, the scientists' answer to the same question is, quote, of course, I'm a scientist. After the 1920s. Those in the new physics of quantum mechanics are only beginning to prove what metaphysics beyond physics has indicated for centuries. We are all connected. There is an invisible force I like to call it a power, an invisible power. Power versus Force is a great book by Dr. David Hawkins. May the power be with you. May the power be with you. Power over force. Power. There's a great power. Do you believe in God? Of course. I'm a scientist. Those in the new physics of quantum mechanics are only beginning to prove what metaphysics beyond physics has indicated for centuries. We are all connected. There is an invisible force in the universe that pervades all life. Even more astonishing, as reported by John Gleidman in Scientific Digest a decade ago. Thank you for providing a date. In July of 1982. Is that, quote, several leading theorists have arrived at the same startling conclusions. Their work suggests a hidden spiritual world within all of us, end quote. Gleidman sardonically called it, quote, the ghost in the machine. The ghost in the machine. It's this apparition. It is this apparition within all of us, this dimension of our humanity that defies measurement, rules, and cause and effect, that continues to baffle scientists. Yet even many of their own are now concluding that the, quote, soul, that, quote, ghost in the machine, exists. Gleidman's article titled, quote, scientists in search of the soul. Quotes, many of the most respected and distinguished scientists from all over the globe. Some conclude that our non-material, invisible self is what constitutes our human traits of conscious self-awareness, free will, personal identity, creativity, and emotions. They contend that the invisible presence exerts a physical influence on us, and even more astounding, that this non-material self survives the death of the physical brain. Another intriguing notion comes from John von Neumann, a mathematician and scientist described by Nobel laureate Hans Bethe, I guess is how you pronounce it, B-E-T-H-E, Bethe, I guess is how you pronounce it, as perhaps, quote, the smartest man who ever lived. Bethe once remarked, quote, I have sometimes wondered whether a brain like John von Neumann's does not indicate a species superior to that of man, end quote. And what were von Neumann's conclusions? Quote, that physical reality was a figment of the human imagination and that the only true reality was thought, end quote. Eugene Wigner, I don't know, it's spelled W-I-G-N-E-R. A lot of times people like to pronounce W's as V's. I don't know. Eugene Wigner. Should I just try all of them? Wigner. Wigner. Winner of the 1963 Nobel Prize in Physics, who studied von Neumann's formulations, stated publicly, quote, man may have a non-material consciousness capable of influencing matter. So this very smart person, winner of the 1963 Nobel Prize in Physics, who studied von Neumann's formulation, stated publicly that people may have a non-material consciousness capable of influencing matter. Thanks to the double slit experiment and stuff like that. To put it in my own non-Nobel laureate language, says Wayne Dyer, you have the capacity to create miracles and live a life of real magic by using your invisible self to influence your physical reality. When you truly become a spiritual being first and a physical being second, and know how to live and breathe in this new alignment, you will become your own miracle worker. In all fairness, Gleidman also writes at length about the many distinguished scientists who take the contrary position that we have no proof of the existence of the soul. We can recognize these people as members of the same fraternity who throughout recorded history have declared that we have no proof and thus microscopic life does not exist. Flying machines are impossible and the earth is not round. For me, the existence of the soul does not need any scientific validation. I know what I know about myself and my proof is in my own experience. The metaphysicians and the poets have expressed truth for me that is particularly relevant on this matter of the existence of the soul. Listen to William Blake's Auguries of Innocence, which is italicized and capitalized. Auguries of Innocence. Insert and centered. To see a world in a grain of sand, and the heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. And eternity in an hour. We are led to believe a lie when we see with not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, when the soul slept in beams of light. The soul slept in beams of light. End quote. How magnificent a vision, holding infinity in the palm of your hand. Indeed, we are led to the big lie that we are just these aging bodies. Instead, Blake reminds us that our soul, our spiritual being, does not die, nor is it born. It's eternal and formless as a beam of light. Keep uppermost in your mind that becoming a spiritual being involves being able to touch your invisible self and know that it's the secret to your ultimate ability to become a miracle maker. That inner formless self is your imagination. Albert Einstein, who combined the qualities of both poet and scientist, summed it all up nicely. Quote, imagination is more important than knowledge. Imagination is more important than knowledge. When you examine the lives of the most influential people who have ever walked among us, you discover one thread that winds among them all. They have been aligned first with their spiritual nature, and only then with their physical selves. New heading, our greatest teachers. Without exception, all of our greatest teachers and those who have made the greatest impact on humanity have been spiritual beings. They did not limit themselves to the five senses in any way. All of the great teachers and doctrines, including Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Sufism, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's spelled S-U-F-I-S-M. Sufism, and Confucianism have left us with a similar message. All the great teachers and doctrines, including Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Sufism, and Confucianism, have left us with a similar message. Go within. Discover your invisible higher self. Know God as the love that is within you. Those spiritual masters were all miracle makers. They were here to teach us about the incredible power that resides within each of us. It seems ironic that as a people, we have been obsessed with what divides us, with war and the building of more and more powerful delivery systems of hatred and killing. Yet, the most influential and revered of the world's teachings all have a message of love. For example, Christianity, God is love, and he who abides, and one who abides in love abides in God, and God abides in them. Buddhism, One, he that loveth, one that loveth not, knoweth not God, for God is love. Judaism. Love is the beginning and end of the Torah. Confucianism. Love belongs to the high nobility of heaven and is a quiet home where one would want to dwell. Love belongs to the high nobility of heaven and is the quiet home where one wants to dwell. Sufism. Sane and insane. All are searching lovelorn for God. In mosque, temple, church alike, for only God is the one God of love, capitalized, and love, capitalized, calls from all these, each one God's home. I replace his a couple times with God again. Just put in God again. Sane and Sufism, however you say it. I guess Sufism, like suffrage, like suffering. So they actually named the religion after suffering. Why? Okay, let's see what this says. Sane and insane, all are searching lovelorn for him in mosque, temple, church alike, for only God is the one God of love, and love calls from all these, each one his home. Sane and insane, all are searching lovelorn for God in mosque, temple, church alike, for only God is the one God of love, capitalized, and love calls from all these, each one God's home. Becoming a spiritual being is synonymous with becoming a miracle worker and knowing the bliss of real magic. The differences between people who are non-spiritual or, quote, physical only beings and those whom I call spiritual beings are dramatic. Examine the following delineation of how both of these beings live with their invisible selves, their minds. Getting yourself aligned with the thinking of spiritual beings is your task. If you truly want to know this elusive thing that I keep referring to as real magic. New heading, spiritual versus non-spiritual beings. The spiritual dozen. Spiritual dozen. Is where I'll begin the next reading on page 33.
Peace is the easiest thing to hold on to. Touching your thumbs to your index fingers, both of them, and holding them there. Say to yourself, feel the energy of peace. Touching your thumbs to your index fingers, feel the energy of peace running all through you and resting in your heart. Breathing in deep through your nose, say to yourself, I am peace. Holding it in. Sipping in more peace when you can. Breathing out, releasing all that no longer serves you with compassion and a smile. Say to yourself, I am love.